Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Sir Medieval and welcome back to some more Bless Talk. Today we're going to be talking about some tips that'll hopefully help you prepare for the new version of Bless. We're going to break it down into 5 categories, so yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Here we go. So the first one we're going to be talking about is a fun one, probably most of the people's favorite, PvP. So PvP is going to get a heck of a lot more important in the new version of Bless, especially because we have the special shop where we can use our honor points to buy things like Dragon Balls, runes, Ymir skins, which are worth a lot by the way. It's going to be worth looking at for sure. But what I want to talk about first is the arena. Now, we know that we're time gated out of battlegrounds and arenas, so we can only do them at certain times of the day, so it's going to make them very important that you don't miss them. Because if you get to the top rank in PvP as well, you actually get certain rewards like a flying mount, so it's going to be very important to stay on top when it comes to this. But another place I want to talk about that doesn't really get a lot of love is called Bassel's Canyon. Now, Bassel Canyon, if you don't know, is a place southeast of Curry, around that area, but it's basically an area filled with world bosses. The fun part about these world bosses is that if you take them down with the group, which you probably will need, it'll reward you with a lot of honor. Your honor is based off of how much you contribute to the fight, so if you're able to stay throughout the whole fight and survive, then you'll probably get a ton, probably around 100 to 200 honor depending on how much you hit the boss and how much damage you do. But it's going to be a high-grade PvP area with people coming in at all hours of the day taking people out, because if we bring enough attention to it, which you should, then you can easily compare it to like Hostile and Arcade when the West and the East are just going at it trying to farm their weapons, except for this one you'd farm honor. It's filled with really cool variations of world bosses, like a giant slime that keeps exploding into more slimes and then exploding and exploding and exploding into more slimes. It's freaking crazy. And then you got a mantis that'll just follow you to the ends of the earth, and you got just a giant, you got all kinds of different world bosses in there. It's really going to be a fun place to be. I haven't really delved into it too much, so I don't know the full mechanics of it, but I do know the world boss part, so it'll definitely be something to look into and learn with your guild. And then the next part, of course, is the battlegrounds. Castro Siege is the only one I've been able to try out so far on the Japanese server, but it's a lot of fun. It's very comparable to like Corsair Stronghold and Terra. Basically, in the center of the map, there is a purification tree that you have to take out. It spawns an int for whichever team takes it out, and then you can use that int to bash down the other team's gate and then go for their army commander and win the game. Which sounds simple, right? But on both sides of the map, there's also sacred stones, I believe they're called, that spawn. And then you can actually take those down and they lose control of the freaking tree if you take those stones down. So as you're fighting, trying to take down the enemy gate and take down the commander, you also have to be wary of those stones and make sure you put people on to guard them. Now, some things people don't probably know is that at first glance, you probably don't realize that you can actually heal your gate. If it doesn't actually go down, you can get mystics when we finally get them and paladins on them to heal it, and also your army commander. Really good for prolonging the game, because if you actually get the daily quest and you win the game, you get free Dragon Balls, crystals, 30 of them for free, and then you also get 700 honor, which is going to be amazing, especially in the special shop. But if you feel like your team is losing and there's just no way you're going to be able to win that day, you can still draw the match if the time runs out, and healing the gate and the commander is an easy way to do that, and you still get 90 points out of 100 towards the daily. And then losing gives you 30, so you'd have to lose at least 4 times in a row if you really wanted that daily done. And lastly, we've got the Guild v Guild. Now, the way the Guild v Guild works, at least in the Japanese version, is every 2 weeks the bidding happens, usually on the Friday, and then you can actually participate in the Castle Siege if you want on the next week. But if you actually take down a territory, your guild starts earning governance points, which you can use to actually get raid potion buffs, which are really strong. They spike up your attack power and your spell power by a ton. So they're really important to have. And apparently in one of the versions, you can actually use what's called realm points for legendary items that you can get. So like armor, weapons, probably. We don't know how it's going to work in the new version yet, but that is definitely going to be something to look into. And that'll wrap it up for PvP. Those are some things you definitely want to look forward to. Of course, elite mobs are going to be a really high stakes area. They're going to be a hot spot for PvP as well. So you can definitely build up some honor there as well. But Guild v Guild, Battlegrounds, Basel Canyon, Arena, of course. And just watch out for that special shop, because you're going to be able to buy a lot of cool stuff in there. And then the next one up is PvE, which of course is going to be a very important factor in Bless. In fact, you're going to have to do that to stay relevant in PvP, more than likely. But of course, it's very important that you upgrade your gear, obviously. And the way you do this is by getting Dragon Balls. You can get these in various ways, like there's Dragon Ball crystals. By the way, they're not really called Dragon Balls, but it's just easier to do because that's what everybody knows them by. But yeah, you can get Dragon Ball crystals in various ways. We can get them like from the PvP daily I told you about earlier. by monster hunting, which remember that name of course later, and of course elite mob farming, the more traditional method. But you can dismantle those. Sometimes it's probably easier to just sell them to the auction house because they actually are worth a lot more in the Dragon Ball crystal form, it seems. But while you're leveling, you should be saving up a ton of Dragon Ball crystals and Dragon Balls entirely from the gear that you get. It's better to dismantle that green gear and blue gear that you get while questing up instead of just like selling it outright. You do end up with a lot of money, but the Dragon Balls are way more important, trust me. So the best leveling method that we have on the Japanese version so far that makes it incredibly easy to level, by the way, is basically you would do main quests and side quests till around level 12 or 13. You could pretty much just rush the main quest, and then if you're stuck at 12, you do a couple side quests and maybe a main quest if you still have it, and you're 13. And then after that, you can go into the first dungeon from level 13, and you can take it all the way to 22. After 22, you unlock the second dungeon, but 13 to 22 should take you roughly about 3 to 4 hours tops, especially if you have like a rookie buff, if we get that when the NA version comes out, NA/EU, or if you have like an XP potion, for instance. If you're lucky enough to get an XP pet, like right off the bat, then of course you're square as well. But yeah, that should take you no longer than like 3 hours, for instance. And then once you get to 22, then you can jump into the second dungeon, which might still be the best leveling method, and you can do that one all the way to 31. And then once you get to 31, that's probably the most annoying part out of the entire experience, because 31 you have to rush, you have to go back and do all those main quests all the way up to like level where you are. Basically it'll get you to like level 33 at least, and then you want to do the main quests along with elite mob farming all the way to 38. One that I like to go for, keep an eye out for these, the Harpy boss that's in the desert region in the southwest, and then the boss called Kumta, which I don't know what he's going to translate to in the North American and EU version, but he's in the northwestern part of the map. But you'll find him easily though. There's a bunch of elite mobs around the map. You'll start to learn in locations. They might be relatively similar to where the Japanese versions ones are. So I'll leave a link in the description to show you the map, so you can map out where all these elite mobs are and probably have an idea when the game comes out. But once you get to 38, then you do the main quest that brings you to the southeastern region, the peninsula, where you can actually farm the rhinos. Now, there's a ton of elite mobs you can farm on this island. There's the slimes, there's the turtle, there's the naga, which is probably the most annoying one out of them, by the way. And then, of course, there's everyone's favorite, the rhinos. Now, the thing about the rhinos is they have a 15-second immunity as soon as you attack them. But once that 15-second immunity goes away, it's a literal invulnerable buff, by the way, then they get double damage. So they take a ton of damage. You can crit them for like 30k if you're a mage, really, and then freaking assassins can crit them for like 20k. It's crazy. But you can take those out relatively quick, and they give as much XP as the rest of the elite mobs, but there's 2 of them per channel, which is the nice part. Now, elite mobs are probably going to turn into a war zone, especially because there's going to be a big population on the early access release. So I wouldn't count on those rhinos being an open spot. I would rather go for like the naga or maybe even the slime. The slime isn't too bad, especially if you're a range character. He has a area-wide debuff that damages you if you get close. But it's really only a pain for like melee, and even then Guardian's okay to do it on. Berserker's the annoying one to do it on though. But like Paladin should be just fine with that one. And then of course the Naga has a move where he does an AoE circle around him. If you get hit by it, you're going to get knocked down. And then that's not the worst part. The worst part is that he will initially follow up with it with a stab move, but the stab will literally one-shot you no matter what class you are. The only class that I've ever really survived it on is Guardian, which of course makes sense, but if you're a mage, ranger, berserker even, you get hit by that, you're gone. So that's what makes Naga really annoying, because he spams it. He likes to spam that thing. So I would recommend not going for that one if you could avoid him. There's also the Hobgoblin that's a little bit to the northern side of that peninsula. You'll see it when you open up your map, but basically that one is less annoying, but he does a lot of damage over time, so he doesn't do anything special, he just does a ton of damage. So the part that I like as well about the new version, the NA/EU, and I wasn't thinking about until earlier today, but the content tokens are going to make things really good. So I know people have had problems with like the XP potion, but if you think about it, if you use the content tokens, if you save those up, you can actually buy an experience potion of your own. Because the inventory slots in the Japanese version, they're usually like 80 Lumina, for instance. There's usually events that give you free Lumina in the Japanese version going on, so you can claim them like every day, and they'll give you like 10 one day, they'll give you like 20 another day, they'll give you like 30. You could basically, after like 3 or 4 days, get an inventory expansion and then be just fine. But If you're able to get enough content tokens early on to get an XP potion, then technically that would last 30 days if it's similar to the Japanese version. That means you would only have to save up enough content tokens every 30 days to buy an XP potion until you reach level 20 stance level. Because at that point, you're all at the same point. So really, if you think about it, what you want to go for is, of course, the experience potion. If they have a rookie buff, then that basically does the same thing. And if it stacks on top of the experience potion, then great. If it doesn't, though, then that means that the experience potion you don't really need, and then you can just basically go for the rookie buff. It'll probably stack, though, because then that would make the experience potion worthless. But you can get those two things, and then the pet skill, of course. And I showed you that, where you can get 42% for the base one, and then like 154% for the max. If you had all of those, you would skyrocket in levels. Absolutely. Pet one is the main one to go for, though. We're not sure exactly if the pet scrolls are going to be in the cash shop. If they are, that might not be okay with a lot of people. Probably won't be. But if they're not, then it'll probably be pretty difficult to get a pet with experience. But if you do, then you'll get really lucky. And what you're going to want to look out for at in-game is when you get to 45, you're going to be going into the dungeons. Nigroturus is probably, well, they changed it to Migraturus now. But anyway, that's the first one that you're able to do at 45 usually. And then you have to go into Dead Mines Hard, then you have to go into Patala Ruins, the dungeon, the 5-man, before you go to the raid. You basically just have to build up your gear score. The gear score for tourists starts around 6.3. I'm not sure if they're going to have that requirement in the new version, but if they do, then you might have to grind out some gear before you go in there, like just plussing up your gear to like +5. It's probably going to be really, really painful doing it in all greens, but that's probably what you're going to have to do. Something to know as well is the fact that we have a long cooldown on our iframes now is going to make certain bosses in that dungeon an absolute nightmare. Not to mention we actually have a hard mode of tourists now. But I don't know if that means they changed the dungeon mechanics of the normal or they changed the difficulty of it, but there's two bosses you definitely want to watch out for and make sure you watch videos on before you go in to get an idea of it. It's the fire boss, the one before the last I believe as well. He's the Balrog. He basically does a flame attack that if you're not basically behind a guardian that's blocking or like out of the circle, it's going to one-shot you essentially or do a lot of damage in the process. If you're in green gear, you're going down, basically. He does a couple other moves, like he has a bunch of flaming tornadoes that fly around the room while you're fighting him. There's also the succubus boss, but the succubus boss isn't as bad. There is the dance boss where he will tell you to keep on moving. If you don't move while you're fighting him, you're going to take a ton of damage. He'll tell you to stop. It's basically like a Simon Says boss. It's fun. It's fun. And then, of course, the last boss is the one to really worry about. He does a random worldwide AoE, of course. First, he does it close to him. Then he does it on the outer ring of the fight. And, of course, halfway through the fight, he'll jump up into the air and float. And then your entire party has to get to a light somewhere around the room. It's a tough fight. A tough fight in a tough dungeon overall. So it's going to be crazy in green gear. It's going to take a little while for you to kill stuff. And some of them might actually have an enrage timer. I remember Dead Mines did, but I'm not sure about tourists, but we'll have to see on that one. In PvE as well, you're also going to watch out for the pet skills. You'll want to watch out for those. For the pets and the mounts, you get some pretty interesting choices. Like for the pets, you can get attack power and spell power. You can even get like adventure point boosts, guild experience boosts, which is going to help a lot with increasing your guild slots. You can get like auto loot even, which is going to be amazing. It's not like BDO quick where, you know, you're going to be picking up like every item every second, but it's something for sure. And then, of course, there's like the physical defense and magical defense, if I didn't mention that already. Yeah, there's a couple different ones for the pet. And then, of course, the mount has ones like sprint, like in BDO kind of thing. For 6 seconds, it increases your pet's speed to like 60%, I believe, or 80%. Might be something different in NA and EU. There is one that's pretty crazy, like the nocturnal one, which increases your pet's movement speed by like 50% at night. If you're riding that thing at night, it's just going to go sonic speed. It goes so freaking fast. And as you upgrade the grades of the pets, like once you get it to blue, purple, and then of course orange, you get more skills. So if you get it to like purple, for instance, you could have up to 2 to 3 skills, depending on what they have in the NA/EU version. And then of course legendary, you'll have 3. And then of course, with legendary status, some of the pets actually have, you may have seen this already, legendary skins, which are really, really cool. But yeah, they actually transform. It's not on all of them though. Some people have said that there's actually very few that have them. There might be more in the NA/EU version, but that's definitely something to look forward to as well. They're really freaking cool. And then of course we have the world bosses, which is going to be a very, very fun thing to do in Bless Online. So in Bless, of course, the world bosses work a little bit the same as BDOs does, except you won't be pulling your hair out every 5 seconds like I did. This is what happens. But anyway, yeah, so you basically form a huge raid. You go and take out these world bosses. There's actually field bosses as well that spawn and patrol around the map that are really cool. But you can get some awesome rewards. You can get these loot chests from the world bosses themselves. And I'm not quite sure on the extent of what you can get in there, but I'm guessing they must be pretty good. It won't be like a one-shot thing where like Kazarka would do like a room-wide area of effect and you just basically be dead. It'll be a little bit easier than that, thankfully, but rest assured though, those world bosses will be places for PvP and places to get a lot of good loot. Also, you're going to want to make sure you're saving up those skill points, or I guess fragments we should call it, because if you didn't notice, we do have non-stance skills now in parameters. Parameters replaced our passives that we had on the Japanese version. So now, if you want to get the stamina, which is probably going to be very important just as it was in the Japanese version, which gives you health, then you'll probably have to spec right in the parameters. So you don't want to do that too early until you know exactly where you want to go. So watch out for that as well. And don't forget about the monster hunt either. When the NA/EU version comes out and we find out like where the mobs are and the rotations that we can go on and people start developing maps and routes for these guys, then the monster hunt is going to become one of your favorite words, because that'll be a really good way to earn Dragon Ball crystals. Watch out for that. And the next one is crafting, which might be at least less important, but of course still very important to the community, and somebody's got to do it, right? There's also a couple bonuses that go into crafting. For instance, if you go into armor smithing and jewel crafting, for armor smithing, you definitely want to get at least one character with it, because you want to make sure that you're always using repair hammers to repair your gear. You might have seen those in some people's inventory. I usually flood mine with them if I can get them. Some people go a little crazy though and just have like stacks upon stacks of that stuff. But basically the reason you want those is because it's like a mobile repair bench where you can repair it at any place you want. Also, if you repair it from your repair hammers instead of like a blacksmith shop, your stuff won't lose durability when you use it. So if you go to a blacksmith shop, you can repair it for like 2-3 gold depending on how hurt your gear is, which is going to cost you a fortune in the long run. And then of course you're going to lose max durability on that until it eventually breaks, which is not going to be great. But if you do it with a repair hammer that you can get from armor smithing, then you don't lose anything at all and it repairs it back to full. So there's different tiers of the hammers. So basically the bronze one is the one you'd start out at, which just takes broken ore to craft from armor smithing. Basically that one just repairs 1 durability, which isn't very much. Even if you have like 70 of them, that's like 2 pieces of gear back to full. The silver one does 5, however, which is really good actually. And then the gold one repairs it back to full. So the silver one takes about, I want to say, a piece of steel, which takes 2 iron ore to make, yep. And then steel abrasives, which you can get from the general shop, the general crafting shop, for a cheap amount. And then of course the gold one takes about 10 steel per, with a crazy amount of abrasives. Actually the steel one takes 5 abrasives, I'm sorry. But if you get a steady supply of those, even if you have like just one armor smithing character with low amounts of craft in them, or if you just buy them from the auction house, they're really good to use. Those are what you want to use anyway. And then of course you have the jewel crafting, which you can craft your max level jewels. Really useful, really useful. Your max level jewels, the purple ones, actually give you energy recovery, which is going to be very useful in the Japanese version. We did not see any jewelry on our character in the new versions, which is actually pretty strange because we're not sure what they're going to give us exactly, since we won't be using energy to roll or dodge anymore. So that's going to be interesting to see what those provide. They might actually end up providing offensive or defensive capabilities, but we'll have to see on that one. And then of course there's enchanting, where you can get your runes, which are going to be extremely important, like you have no idea how so. Even if they're working on balancing the rune system, they're probably still going to play a pretty big part in the PvP and PvE. So those are going to be something to watch out for as well. And then of course you can also get max tier bonuses with the crafts, which are pretty cool. The cooking one kind of cracks me up. You can get the max level called Gordon Ramsay after Master Cook, which is freaking hilarious. But like for armor smithing, for instance, you can get defensive and defensive stats, so physical and magical armor for maxing out the craft. You can also for jewel crafting get attack power and spell power. So if you're playing a DPS character, that might be a really cool thing to have. And then of course as a tank, armor smithing might be the way to go, along with getting all those repair hammers. You might reach that at max anyway easily just by making those repair hammers and jewel crafting kits. So you should be fine on that one. And then of course you can also get crafting recipes from dungeons, in-game dungeons like Turris, which are really good to have. Another thing to watch out for as well, and another reason you might see people grinding rhinos all the time, is for cooking. Now the rhinos drop the tenderloin meats but you can actually get some pretty incredible food buffs from cooking. If you want to min-max in PvP, well, cooking's going to become your best friend, first of all. You're going to want that food. But it's also really good, like if you're low on health, for instance, if you just got out of combat, bread can get you back up to full health in like little to no time, so you can get right back to grinding. It's amazing, so definitely watch out for cooking as well. This next part is going to be tailored more towards the auction house and what you can sell to make money, which is going to be one of the fun parts and more important parts of Bless Online as well. Of course, we can get past the ones like the simple auction house flipping. Of course, that's always going to be a thing. If you're willing to sit there for like 8 hours a day just buying low and selling high, then of course you're going to make money regardless. But what I want to talk about is some of the things you can sell that are going to make you a lot of money, like the Dragon Ball crystals. So if you're like weary after a long day of farming rhinos, for instance, or even the hobgoblin, or at the refinery, or even the mammoths, wherever you want to farm. Let's say you got like 100 Dragon Ball crystals. You can put them on the auction house for a really, really good price. I mean, crazy amount. Even with 30% tax, if that's still a thing, you'll still get a ton of money from that. So that's a good thing to sell, especially if you don't need to upgrade your gear right at that moment. You could also just sell those crystals, earn enough money to buy higher tier gear as well. You can also sell Ymir skins, which are worth a lot. In the Japanese version, they're actually worth about 42 gold. You can get them from the special shop, of course. You can also get them from the Adventure Point box. 1,000 Adventure Points at the Adventure Point shop, or it's going to be in the special shop as well. You have a chance to get Ymir skins, Ymir horns, a bunch of Dragon Balls, and a couple other things like a costume as well. So definitely watch out for that as well, because that's going to be a nice thing when you're doing monster hunting to go for. And then not only is cooking really good for mid-maxing in PvP and like dungeons and raids, but you can also make a ton of money off of it. The food that you get from rhinos tends to sell for a ton on the marketplace, and there's got to be a ton of other recipes that you can make to make just as much money, if not more. Something you can also do, if you really, really want to, for all you tamers out there, is you can sell pets and mounts for a ton of money on the auction house. Now, the legendary pets are just nuts. I've seen them go for like 5,000. Really, really crazy price. That was for one of the mammoths that has a legendary skin as well. But you could sell pets with like auto loot or the experience bonus and make a ton of money off of this. So if that's what you want to do all day, hey, feel free. If you want some tips on that, you can enchant pets by sacrificing other pets. Like you could basically tame a hyena, sacrifice 5 more hyenas to level that one up to get it to the level it needs to get faster to try to upgrade it. It's a really good tactic to use, so you don't have to wait on that to level up to 10. You could just kind of blaze through it. Also, another tip in regarding pet taming that taming guides have probably already gone over is if you tame something and then use something of the same type to try and upgrade it, it has a better base chance. So if you tame a hyena, if you use like a sprite, it's only going to have like a 5% chance to upgrade at the base level. But if you use another hyena, it's going to have a 15% chance, and that's just going to grow up to 30% max, but it's going to be a much better chance than using that sprite. That's something to look forward to as well. Also, for mounts, if you're trying to level those up, there's apparently mountains that you can go to just climb them up, like climb up with them, auto run or whatever you got to do, and it levels the mounts really fast, because those ones you can't just like have out in AFK like the pets do, but you can actually run up a mountain, auto run, and level those up really quick, and then do that the same way and sell those. And of course, monster hunting is going to be a great way to earn money, but don't worry, you'll find out about that after NA/EU. Hopefully that's still a thing, so that we'll actually be able to do that. But turbans. Now, if you've ever seen those little weird mushrooms on the ground that are glowing, usually in the desert regions, basically those are what's called turbans. You can teleport into a gathering instance for those. You might have seen me do that actually. And you can go for 3 different rooms. One has ores, just filled with ores. Another one has like cooking supplies. And another one has alchemy supplies. The first one you want to go for, no matter what, is the chilies. So you want to go to the cooking section, and after a little while of just exploring around, you'll find out what the chilies look like relatively quickly. They're the green bush, basically. But after that, you want to go for the gold ore. So there's usually about 7 chilies in there, and there's always a gold ore node that spawns in a turban. That gives you 1 gold after you sell it to a merchant. So you just go to each room to find it really quick, mine that up, and then for the last 2 minutes or so, or the last minute and a half that you're in the turban, because it is timed, you want to go for as much iron ore as you can to make those repair hammers. If you do that, then you could probably make at least 3 gold per turban, and you can make a lot of profit doing that if you do that like all day long or even just a couple hours a day. Absolutely. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the mechanics of the new version. So there's a couple different interesting things that the new version is going to have. Some things we don't fully understand yet, but there was something we were able to pick up on. A couple different things actually, like the new order quests. So the order quests are still relatively the same as the Japanese version in terms of requirements. However, I noticed when I was in there and took a picture of it that there was these weird looking gold coins. Now we do have golden tickets in the Japanese version when it comes to this that we do get from order quests. Not sure of their function, but these gold coins, definitely don't think I've seen those before, so that might be for something different entirely. Rest assured though, it'd be really useful to get those order quests done, not only for the daily but the weekly itself, because you can get some really good rewards and extra gold from doing that. And then the next thing, of course, we want to talk about is the stance level and the skill system. So there's going to be skill fragments that you can get to make into your skill gems. There's a conversion that you can do as well. It said that the skill fragments are going to be dropping from mobs, so make sure to watch out for those. I think we've actually gotten them from dungeons. In the dungeon run that we did do, we got sapphires, I remember that, but I think that was like a full skill gem. But watch out for that either way. And then of course you can do the stance level, which once you get to level 20, you can unlock the 2 other ones of the total 6 stances so that you can access all 6 as well. You can only choose 2 at a time though, so you have to pick carefully, but for like Berserker, the other 2 are like Vampire and then one other one that I forgot the name of. But some of them should have some pretty interesting effects and skill openers as well. Something to remember as well that I talked about in my last video is if you have 2 stances that have the same skill opener in their combos, so like 2 assault skills, 1 on each stance, then you could reset the combo by switching stances and then reset that skill and then use it again. Something to keep in mind, food for thought. And in terms of getting those stance skills, since 45 is going to be the max level in this new version, and once we get to level 45, the stance skills will come into place. That's going to replace our special skills in the Japanese version. We might or might not be able to use experience potions or pets or rookie buffs for that stance level to gain that even faster to get to 20 as fast as possible. But this might end up being like BDO grinding, where we have to grind on elite mobs all day kind of thing, do dungeons. Just you'll get the stance levels as you do your daily activities, but if you really want to min-max it, then yeah, you're going to have to be grinding for a little while. But yeah, it could go for a very long time to get to 20, so watch out for that as well, but be prepared. And like I said before, if the experience potions and the pets and whatnot actually count towards stance levels, then you could just save up for the content tokens till you can buy an experience potion and then not have to worry about it, because then you really only have to save up for enough to get an experience potion every 30 days until you reach stance level 20, if that makes sense. So basically you'd be perfectly fine with staying in the league for people who pay for convenience items, even though I don't think it's going to be that much of a big deal anyway. But either way, you don't have to worry about that. And then of course the last things we want to talk about is the non-stance skills that we'll have to worry about looking at. There's going to be a lot of meta builds going up, but it might take a long time to figure all this stuff out. Of course the Requiem skill for the Berserker got changed into a Tryndamere ult, where they no longer die at the end of it. It's not a guaranteed death. It does actually heal you, and with the stance called Vampire, that could get really fun really quick. Though not sure what happened to the other different classes. There might be some interesting stuff in there as well. But the non-stance skills, we want to check those out. And the parameter skills as well, we want to know what's going on there. So you want to make sure you develop a build before you do anything with that. If you can, I would hold off on that until end game. And don't forget to save up as much gold as you can, or if you have content tokens as well left over, because if you need to, absolutely need to at endgame reset your build, of course you can use gold, you can use those content tokens to turn into Lumina. There's going to be a couple different ways we can get those skill resets for you. But that's all the tips I have for you today, folks. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. I am almost out of breath, but heck, that was a fun video to make. Thank you so much for watching, folks. I hope you have a wonderful night or day, and I will see you next time. Later, folks. Onward to bliss.